Duarte Design. Michael actually has a head that flips up from the back. I've seen, this is an in-joke for some of the people in the audience, I've seen this, and someday you all will as well. He's a phenomenal person, a gentleman, and he'll tell you what his t-shirt means, maybe before you get started. Come on.
Infidel.
Identified by certain members of the audience. Oh, thanks. I need one of those. Usually I'm just projecting. It's Arabic. It means infidel or heathen. I like to wear it when I eat ethnic food. Wow, it's been a while since I've had one of these. Howard, give it to me. So when, and by the way, thank you, Rick. I don't know, I thought confession was kind of an easy cop-out, because reflection for me is so much harder, and I think it takes you to some internal places you don't necessarily always want to go. For me, reflection is very personal. It always centers on the places and events and people in our lives, and for me it's always people. Take my aunt, for instance, right? Wonderful, excellent person, right? Always concerned for everybody else and their well-being. Keep the kids safe, happy, and warm. She's got a problem with math, of course. But it's okay, because the sentiment lingers. This is where I went to school, by the way, so if you don't wear your hat, you're in big trouble. Contrast that with my mother, who, before she had me, was actually a nun. I grew up in a very strict Catholic household. We only missed church once. I think it was when we moved, and it was on daylight savings time day. I think we had to do penance for a week. That sort of thing takes a lot of reflection to work out. It's a more complex issue. I think I may have resolved that at this point in my life, but I'm not sure. But sometimes the people we reflect about are the ones who are closest to us, and we don't pay them enough attention. My wife Karen, her brother Mad Dog, they're great at family events, obviously. I think they do weddings and bar mitzvahs. They're two of the most generous and giving people I've ever met, and I would be a sad, miserable bastard if they had never come into my life. Speaking of sad, miserable bastards, this is my cat Larson. He's also one of the loudest mammals on the planet, I guarantee you. If he's not complaining about something, he's probably sleeping all day. There is something, though, about that I admire and look up to, and if I had to come back as anything, it might just be a loud, miserable, sleepy cat. Going back a little bit in my life, there's my friend David Unger. Met him in high school. He's the kind of guy who's been wearing Oxfords and khakis since he was about, probably 8. He has a certain just charm about him that leaves you completely helpless. I think he'd met Karen about 5 minutes before doing that, and this is the wife of one of our former English teachers. He's sort of got this, like, most interesting man in the world thing going on, and he uses it completely to his advantage. I think about that often for some reason, and I wish I had that kind of skill. I've met some other people. The woman on the right here, the Italian grandmother, Rose, we used to work behind the counter together. One day, this very attractive young woman came up to us, made a beeline for me, looked me in the eye and said, "Hi, do you remember me?" And I said, "Sorry, no," and she turned and walked away. Rose took a rolled up newspaper, hit me on the back of the head and said, "When an attractive woman says, 'Do you remember me?' you say yes." I learned everything I needed about women from Rose. These guys, BDK, Sanjay, and Zubas, yes, their identities have been hidden to protect the innocent. I lived on their couch for a while when I was poor under the agreement that I would cook for them. But one day, BDK started to create a garden in the attic. You know where this is going. He swore us all to secrecy, but he broke his own promise 2 days later when he took a friend up through the manhole. The rest of us were sitting on the couch, baked off our asses, watching Empire Strikes Back, when 2 seconds after they ascended into the attic, his friend came down through the ceiling in a blaze of drywall and insulation. I'm not sure there's a moral to that story, but I reflect on it often because I think it's very funny. It wasn't until I met this guy, Josh Owen, where I actually started to think about what am I going to do with my own life, and started reflecting on that. Brilliant product designer in Philadelphia. You can check out more of his work at owenlogic.com. But we used to drive around Western Pennsylvania going to old guitar stores and looking in the back rooms because we were looking for effects pedals, because you can buy them cheap and you can sell them for a hell of a lot of money. And we'd ask the guys, like, well, what do this sounds like? And they'd be like, well, it sounds like an elephant farting through an HVAC system on Mars. It's like, great, we'll take it. But he created this love of play and of toys in me that I haven't lost until this day. You always have to buy more toys. Now, after meeting Josh, I went to work for this guy, Steve McCallion, who a coworker described as a brilliant prick. And it's probably true. He's a world-class asshole. But he's probably also the smartest guy I've ever met. And in 6 years of what amounted to forced labor under him, I probably learned more about design, architecture, brand, and standing up in front of an audience and giving a presentation than anybody else in my life. Now, at the same time, I worked for Nancy, who was a rather interesting character. But you need somebody in your life who can pick you up after you get out of jail on her birthday, after you've both been banned for life from Busch Gardens Karaoke Club in Portland, Oregon. That is a kind of a different story. But Nancy has an amazing ability to mix her metaphors in ways that you just can't possibly fathom. And I've never been a journaler. I've never kept a diary in my life. But this was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I had to write absolutely everything down. I've got enough material for a full-length book at this point that will leave you speechless and possibly kind of brain dead. I work for this guy at the moment, and you know, the funny thing about reflections is sometimes you don't have enough time. We've been working together for 3.5 years. I don't know where this is going. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to have to do something with brains. But I just don't know. There's not enough time to reflect on all the people who influence us. Other people, though, we do have enough time to reflect on. And one of those would be my dad. He's an engineer. You're a kid, you ask him for a banana split, and he gives you a bowl full of bananas cut the wrong direction, ice cream, and some chocolate sauce. Functionally, it's perfect, right? It's got all the right ingredients and all the right amounts, but it doesn't tell a story. It's not designed. This is probably what I ultimately rebelled against because of what I do now, design and story. But I'll tell you who could tell a story, and it was my grandfather. This is a guy who was born in 1896. He saw his first car when he was 6 years old. He watched men walk on the moon. He had an incredible lifespan. And he could tell stories about it, and he had to, because he was on the sales route from Springfield, Illinois to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And somewhere along the line, he stopped in Kansas City when he was 43 years old and picked up a 21-year-old woman named Evelyn Funk, talked her into somehow marrying him. They eloped, moved to California, where he opened up Burger Town, which was right up the street here, somewhere near the intersection of Bascom and West San Carlos in 1955. I never met Pop. He died when I was 4. But his stories still influence me, and I still reflect on them often. Because what are we ultimately, right? We are mixtapes. We are mashups. We are nothing but the reflections of the people who we've had in our lives. And this is why I say this is about the perils of reflection. Because sometimes those take you to places you don't want to go, but every time you try and reflect on yourself, all you do is see a whole bunch of people looking back at you. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Man, that's a